Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's review is Impossible Landscapes for Delta Green, the role-playing game by Arc Dream Publishing, Part 5. In this video I'll be covering the second part of the second chapter, A Volume of Secret Faces. This will include Nurse Samagina's Residence, Encounter Group, Ailia Citri, Citri's Residence, Dorchester House by Night and Exeunt, the Missing Room. First we begin with Nurse Samagina's Residence. Standing at 52 Crockett Avenue, Boston, Massachusetts, it's a large white aluminium-sided building in the Ashmont neighbourhood. Split into two apartments in 1955, it is meticulously maintained, with one apartment taking up the ground floor and the other taking the other two floors. Esther Samagina lives here with her husband Philip and son Henry. If investigated, they have the usual social media profiles, though there have been no posts for many of them since August the 24th. This is due to Nurse Samagina bringing her work home with her, and the King in Yellow corrupting their home. Having been compromised by the power of Carcosa in Dorchester House, it was the yellow sign that sent her into the abyss, though as with Dr. Barbas the changes were subtle. She brought it home and infected her son with it. As a young boy who was interested in art, he was more drastically influenced. Henry then decided to murder his father, putting his corpse in the master bathtub, and began creating a tribute to the king. Esther has been spreading the infection further, though continuing with her day job. One day she came home and her husband's body was gone, as was her son. Unconcerned, she carried on doing what she was doing, knowing that further instructions would arrive soon enough. Just 10 days before the agents arrived in Boston, she received instructions written by the scribe that she was to fashion an item called the Cloak of Truth, and with the help of this cloak, she exists as all of her family, the cloak creating an illusion of her son and husband when she dons it, a perfect but fragile illusion. She seeks to appease the power that compels her by finding the truth. She recently dreamed that the secret she seeks can be found in a bottle with a name on it stored in some dark corridor. She genuinely believes that the events of the last few months are completely reasonable, though will not answer any incriminating questions. The downstairs neighbour of the Samaginas is Wendy Costick. If questioned, she will say that nothing strange has been happening, and she could hear them going about their business and talking during the evening, claiming she ran into Philip Samagina recently and that he seemed fine. Denton and Everly Gresser live next door to the Samaginas. Denton has seen all of the Samaginas coming and going, and if the agents are friendly to them, they will reveal that Esther delivered a pamphlet for a self-help group that they ignored. If asked to search, they will find it, and it is for Encounter Group. More on that later. Should the agents spy on the Samagina household, they can track their normal pattern of life. At 7 a.m, Nurse Samagina leaves for work in the family car, usually carrying laundry or a bag with cloth in it. She actually has the Cloak of Truth with her. At 9:40 a.m, Wendy Costick leaves for work. At 10:45 a.m, Henry Samagina returns to the house and stays there for 15 to 20 minutes, then leaves on foot to walk to school. He's never observed leaving the house in the morning. At 1 p.m, Philip Samagina comes home and eats lunch alone, then goes back to work at Carney Hospital on foot. He is also never seen leaving the house in the morning. At 6 p.m, Esther Samagina comes home from work. Neither Henry or Philip seem to come home at night, but both can be seen in the house when she arrives. At 7 p.m, Wendy Costick comes home from work. If the agents follow Philip Samagina, he goes to his job as an orderly at Carney Hospital, where he changes out of his street clothes into his uniform and then disappears inside. If he is tailed, the agents are sure they see him enter a bathroom with no exits and not leave. Henry performs in a similar manner when going to school. If anybody at their work or school are questioned, they will say that they're fine and they've recently been seen. We have two disinformation sections. The first is Researching Samagina. If the name is Googled, it can be determined to be the name of a demon from Ars Goetia and increases the researcher's corruption by +1. Samagina is a great marquis of hell that rules over 30 legions of demons. He speaks with a hoarse voice and teaches liberal sciences and gives count of dead souls that died in sin. He is pictured as an ass and can appear as either sex at his master's request. The second disinformation section is about questioning the Samagina's neighbours. It points out that they have little to reveal, saying all is well and that they've spoken to all of them in the last week or so. So, should the agents decide to break into the Samagina household, they will find out that there are no spare keys outside and the windows are locked. The downstairs neighbour has a security system, but upstairs is not alarmed. Wendy Costick has a set of spare keys for upstairs, but won't give them up unless a really good reason is given, law enforcement for example. The door can be broken open, though if Wendy sees it she will call the police. Agents can also climb up and break a window open, though there is a danger of falling. Once inside, they can investigate. Through the front door there is a small mudroom and cloak closet with a narrow staircase leading up to the two-storey apartment. Again, there is a security door in the way, which will need to be bypassed. Once inside, the agents notice an intense smell, something akin to overcooked spicy food or dried flowers that can't be figured out but is everywhere and strong. The second floor is wide and has an L-shaped kitchen, clearly a retrofitted 1920s home with a round dining table and 4 chairs. Even though it's open plan, it's dark and cramped. There's another staircase that leads up to the 3rd floor. Here is where the agents can start finding clues. On a TV dinner table in the living room, there's a roughly knocked together pamphlet with a glue stick and other bits that make up a flyer for Encounter Group. There are a few photocopies as well as a FedEx office receipt for 250 copies. They meet on Tuesdays at a nearby church. It reads, Encounter Group, no cost. Find the answer to life's questions in a no-judgment group environment. 7 till 9 p.m. on Tuesdays, St Jude's Church, Dorchester, masks provided. There's also a drawing of the yellow sign alongside tireless heroes explore knowing infinite night grants comfort on moonlit endless seas. The first letter of each word combines to spell the king comes, and anyone who works it out gets +1 corruption for their troubles. The couch has 2 papier-mâché masks with a single silver wire to hold them in place that is identical to those worn at Encounter Group and by Henry Lundeen when he was discovered in 1952. Realising this is a small sandhit. The next clue is the linseed oil, tray and rollers. Inside the living room is a barrel that is dry, having once held linseed oil. There is a crumpled post-it note nearby that reads, for Sammy to pick up. Any agent who investigated the McAllister building in 1995 may remember this note that was left in the basement 20 years earlier. This causes a minor sandhit. What was left has long dried up to a clear paste, and the roller and tray are still tacky. A successful search roll notices that it has been painted on many walls in the home. The smell is evident, and an in-times-5 roll informs that it is highly flammable. There is a small closet that contains only one strange thing. A baroque red bottle that seems to be carved from a single crystal that has a bronze plaque that reads Henry J. Samagina. The leathered top on the bottle is open and it is empty. Upstairs we're given another clue, the sewing machine and costumes. There's a new sewing machine here, and scattered nearby are dozens of sections of cloth, coloured threads and yarns. There are 4 partially completed costumes that look identical, red and gold bellhop outfits with false pockets and buttons, and what can be identified as fez-like caps are cut and ready nearby. On the chest of each suit in gold thread it reads Hotel Broadlebin. In the bathroom on the 3rd floor, every book other than Henry Samagina's The Phantom Saith are scattered about. Many of them have words and photographs cut out of them. Among these books are some of Roger Carron's Night Sea series and a copy of Emmeline Fitzroy's A World Without Doors. Anyone who encountered these during the night floors can take a sandhit. The mirror is smeared with greasy fingerprints in strange lines that actually form the yellow sign, and those who have seen it, have you, recognise it. If those who have not seen it trace the lines, they see it for the first time. Those with corruption of 3+ who trace the symbol find their fingers slip inside the mirror. Those who have seen the bathroom in Dr. Barbas's house may recognise that this is where the books came from. We have an exeunt here, the laundry chute. In the bathroom there is a partially popped open laundry chute that has a post-it note above that reads X4 bellhop, X2 gangster in Esther Samagina's handwriting. The chute looks fairly new, though slightly misaligned with sawdust on the rug below. It's too small for anyone to fit into. However, if anyone shines a light down, they find it travels for quite a distance and the noise of machinery can be heard from below. At the bottom is what seems to be a burgundy rug, and a shadowed face will look up at the agents. If they shout, it shouts back, though they can't understand what it's saying. Eventually the figure leaves. The chute actually connects to the basement of Hotel Broadlebin in the night world, and the person looking up is one of the agents having been in the laundry room in some past or present moment. When or if they are in the room, they can hear what is shouted back, and any agent who comes to understand that they are talking to themselves takes a small sandhit and gains +1 corruption. The end of the chute can't be found anywhere in the house, which causes a sandhit when realised. If the wall is torn open, the chute will only be seen to go down around 1 metre, and it is capped by a metal sheet with a picture from a magazine of a burgundy rug on it. This causes another possible minor sandhit. Esther Samagina uses this chute to make costumes for Broadlebin's marionettes, dropping them down the shaft in service to the king. Okay, so the next part is the master bedroom. On the bed here are 2 sets of male clothing, laid out how they would be worn, with done-up buttons and underwear inside of pants, all pinned together. There's a business casual outfit for a large man and an outfit for a teenager that has a Fetty Wap t-shirt, jeans, a hoodie and sneakers. Each morning Esther lays out new clothes for her husband and son, and several sets of them are in a hamper behind the door. Underneath the mattress is an overstuffed scrapbook. Henry Samagina's masterwork that was dictated to him by the corpse of his father while Henry meditated on the yellow sign in the mirror. Moving to the master bathroom, it's shut and has a thick blue towel at the bottom of it. A fan can be heard inside and the light is on. If they open it, then the smell that hits them is that of death. The bath smells so badly of chemicals that it's paralysing, with all actions being made at -20 while in here. The smell is the same as they smelled when entering the house. The bath itself is filled with dozens of industrial cleaner bottles that are all open. There is an inch of liquid that has congealed to a dark brown. If it is drained, there is evidence that a body was kept in here for some time, and those with forensic training can see signs of death stains, suggesting a tall person died and rotted here. There is no corpse in the house, well, kind of. The mirror is, like the other, covered in strange lines drawn with fingerprint grease. The yellow sign can be recognised, and as with the previous mirror, if it is traced, then the fingers of the person doing it slip into the mirror. Each time it's traced, the hand can go in deeper. The other side of the mirror is described as cold and pliant, like a hybrid of clay and soft ice. Anyone pushing their hand through needs to make a luck roll. If they pass, they can feel a cold arm on the other side. If they pull on it with strength ×5, then the corpse of Philip Samagina is dragged out of the mirror and lands on the person pulling, covering them in decaying, chemical-sodden, rotten flesh, causing a sand hit. If they push their face into the mirror, there is a huge black space that gives them +1 corruption. There is resistance that implies that they could enter the mirror and swim through the void, which causes a sand hit when realised, and it fills the viewer's mind with fascination. If the sand loss causes temporary insanity, then they can't pull their face out voluntarily. Viewing the other side of the mirror allows an alertness or search roll, and then there are a number of things that they can see each time they succeed. The first thing is the corpse of Philip Samagina. They can reach in and grab the body with a strength ×5 roll, however failure means they tear off a lump of rotten flesh. The other thing that can be noticed is small pinpoints of light in the distance. These are other mirrors which cause a minor sand hit. The nearest is D10 +3 turns away, and they can choose to fully enter the mirror and swim to it, exiting at the new location. A swimmer can be seen in the distance wearing a white suit and a red tie, but is too far off and his face can't be seen, and it causes a small sand hit. There's also junk floating around the void, unremarkable things you can think of from various time periods. Should the agent be pulled from the void by their compatriots, then they need to make a luck roll or take 2d8 damage as their face is torn to shreds. The mirror is fine. Should this kill them, then the part of the face that was there is cut off cleanly as if by a laser, which causes a sand hit to those in the bathroom. A success means they take d8 damage, and if more than 5 points are done, that means they are disfigured and lose 1 point of charisma. The next clue is the Philips DVT 4000 digital voice recorder. It's found in the bathroom and the battery is flat, though a 15-minute search will uncover the charger. It has 11 short recordings. The first is the voice of a teen boy saying that their mother showed them something interesting that day. The second is the same voice saying, come out, and then there's a struggle and a grown man screaming, causing a minor sand hit. The third is the boy admitting he killed Dad because he didn't want to look, ending with gotta go, bottle. The fourth is the boy saying, making a book, stay tuned. The fifth is the boy laughing, saying that their dad was back and was telling him things for his book. A door can be heard slamming, there's a crackling of plastic bags, and he tells someone to put the bottles over there. The sixth is a woman's voice saying, you've seen it? How did you see it? With the boy answering, in the mirror. The seventh is a woman's voice saying, I think we should. The eighth is the boy saying that his mother showed him the masks today and that she is working on something. The ninth is the boy saying he is almost done and that Dad's been a great help. The 10th recording is the boy chanting and a sink running full blast. He says, show me more 3 times, and a squeaking sound can be heard. An in ×5 roll recognise it as someone's finger moving across a mirror. Then a second croaky voice speaks, sounding like a very old sick man in between gasps of air. Over the next 2 minutes the voice says, and so we come to our end of sorts, a play that contains multitudes, all who died, all who live, all who yet shall, upon this stage with us forever. End. Anyone who has read The King in Yellow recognises these as the last lines of the book. An agent who figured out that Henry Samagina killed his father and then his father's corpse dictated the book to him takes a small sand hit and gains +1 corruption. The final recording is the boy saying, I found a way into the mirror. I sent Dad in first. Come find me there. The second bedroom is that of a teenage boy. It's covered in posters of rap stars alongside sketches from a clearly talented but untrained artist. There's a computer that has been completely smashed to pieces in a corner. Nothing is retrievable. The last clue is the cardboard city. Taking up almost all of the floor of the room, there is a cardboard model of a city. It is bizarre and complex and looks to have taken a few days to make. It has 3 layers and is around 0.5 metre tall and 1.2 metres wide by 1.8 metres long. The top part is of a bombed-out city by a lake, which is a section of mirror cut to fit a hole in the cardboard. The lake even has small cardboard boats with cardboard people. The middle layer of the city is a clear, hard plastic shaft as wide as the lake. This leads to the bottom of the lake, and cardboard boats are suspended by wires and make them look as though they're flying down alongside strange birds and an unknown creature with flippers. The bottom of the layer is the same as the top, except the buildings are not bombed out. There is a bulb-top palace on the edge of the city. Scenes of battle are being played out with tiny artillery pieces and people. The whole thing is quite light if lifted and can be removed from the house. If they've been to Carcosa, it can be recognised as such, giving a +1 corruption. Next, we move on to waiting for the family. Should the agents surveil the house and wait for Esther Samagina to come home, they will observe her entering the house and the lights coming on upstairs. The other 2 family members were seen leaving but never coming back and can now be seen in the house. If they ring the doorbell, roll a d6 to see who Esther answers the door as using this table. If she answers the door as herself, she's smiling, and should they have met her at Dorchester House, she's wondering why they're here. They're struck by the smell, which she will dismiss as cooking. She will invite the agent in and run upstairs, and noises can be heard when she is downstairs. She will nonchalantly call for her son to put his shoes away, and will serve the agent tea that has an intense flower smell and leaves an odd aftertaste and is scalding hot, with little bits of something getting stuck in their teeth. Revoltingly, agents who find the master bathtub later on will realise that this is the liquid that the tea was made with, causing a sand hit. As an aside, when I first read this, I gagged involuntarily. Should the agent ask to speak to other family members, she will run upstairs and one of them will come down. All 3 can be heard talking. If the agents go upstairs, they will only find the family member who led them there. If Esther Samagina is confronted, she will light the linseed-covered walls and rush the most corrupted agent trying to pin them, gaining a +20% to her attack roll and a strength ×5 rolls due to her murderous rage. She will shriek, "The last king has come." Should Philip answer the door, he is standoffish and won't let them in unless they provide police ID. Again, the smell is noticeable. He will not ask them to sit down and tell them that they are having dinner shortly. He will come across as straightforward and grim with nothing to offer. If they ask to speak to Esther, he will tell them that she just stepped out. If the same is asked of Henry, he will go upstairs and Henry will come down. If confronted, he will shrug off the cloak revealing Esther and light the house on fire. If Henry answers the door, he's quiet but will let them in. He'll sit in the living room playing video games and his family can be heard upstairs. If the agents head upstairs, he will head to the bathroom and then light the house on fire. He may be seen later on in the night world. So under most circumstances, the house will end up in flames. Each agent must try to escape or die. The situation is rolled on this table here with various outcomes. Simply jumping to the ground floor is d6 damage, but leaping from the second is 2d6 and leaves them stunned for d4 turns. The next section is Encounter Group. Appearing as just another run-of-the-mill self-help meeting, Encounter Group is far more dangerous. The influence of Carcosa has spread and is a vector for infection of those minds that can effectively spread the influence. When they meet will vary, but it's always in a basement of things like churches or schools and always after hours. The location is always empty aside from the attendees and nobody will be present when a meeting happens. Anyone who turns up to the group will be met by a person wearing a papier-mâché mask with a blank white face and a long silver robe. If questioned, they will say they are acting as the Phantom, saying they won't be at the meeting. If asked who the Phantom is, they will simply respond with, "You know." No one is permitted entry without wearing a mask and a robe. He can give them a mask and a robe from a box with Russian writing on it. If they put them on, the agents look identical with the robe, hood and mask hiding everything. Once dressed, they are told to go downstairs. Anyone who reads the writing on the box who understands Russian can make out Stalingrad Tractor Factory 3, named for Dzerzhinsky. This was the place of the fiercest battle for Stalingrad in World War II, though the box looks new. This causes a minor sand hit. Under the table is another box with odd items in it. A clown mask for a child is on the top. Searching it finds a folded paper sculpture and a yellow, red and blue onesie for a child, as well as 3 thick glass containers that are empty. The outfit and sculpture may be seen or have already been seen in Dorchester House, and those who have take a small sand hit. More on that in a bit. If the agents refuse the robe and mask and cause a fuss, or who search the box on a court, will have the police called on them. If the Phantom is unmasked, he's just a normal guy who the agents don't know. The police are not interested in or worried about the meeting. If the commotion goes on for longer than an hour, then it breaks up for the night and the meeting is never held here again. We have an op-in section called Locating Encounter Group. It points out that there are multiple clues at the Samagina residence and her neighbours, as well as in the neighbourhood of Dorchester House, where the agents can find flyers on telephone poles and in coffee shops. There is a pamphlet in the missing room, the exeunt at the end of the chapter, as well as in the admin wing of Dorchester House itself. One of the Samagina family goes to Encounter Group on Wednesday and Sunday evenings and can be followed. An agent with a corruption greater than 2 may come across an advert for Encounter Group online or any of the places mentioned, and it may not even be limited to the Boston area. It then moves on to the meeting room. As soon as 10 people, all robed and masked, are in the room, a gong will sound from somewhere and one of the figures will gesture for the agents to sit down. Once everyone is seated, one of the figures speaks out and the group responds in a strange cultish kind of manner. Again, the gong will sound and the lights will go out. If the agents respond with aggression, then the police are called as before. Those who stay calm will see dim-robed silhouettes hurriedly switching chairs, and any attempt to keep track of their fellow agents requires an alertness roll at -20%, or they will be as confused as to who is who. Agents will be urged to move, and again, if it leads to trouble, the police are called. Eventually, the light comes back on and all are seated. It then moves to the confessions. Someone will begin, and they will sound random and disjointed, asking questions that may appear rhetorical but nobody answers. The masks prevent identification, even by voice. Each single person gets their chance to speak and can say literally anything. If the agents refuse to share with the group, then trouble may kick off as previously discussed. It gives some strange confessions with a stack of examples. Things like, you think dead people die, but they don't. They live in places no one is looking. There are these spaces where people aren't seeing, and that's where they all are. I'm going to call him and maybe he'll find me. Or, has anyone else noticed the people on fire? I mean, people just like not screaming or nothing, but walking down the street with smoke pouring out of their mouths and eyes. No, just me. Or even, the more you're talking to a phone, the less words you have before you die. It eats those words. It spits them out digested somewhere else. I never speak into phones. My words are my own. Truly bizarre and surreal stuff. If any agent shares their experience with the King in Yellow, they gain D4 San and +1 corruption for each visit, as they feel euphoric and like a weight has been lifted from their shoulders. If they seek out Encounter Group more than once, they gain a further +1 corruption, or D4 if they do it secretly. Those with a corruption of 5+ start to get scared of Encounter Group, feeling dread when they think of it and must fail a San check to attend, losing D4 San if they fail. At this point, they can no longer gain San when speaking about the forces of Carcosa and become addicted to attending, having to pass a San roll to resist attending. Anyone who enters with a corruption of 2+ starts believing that the masked people there are somebody they have previously met. It gives information on how to make it seem like Dr. Barbas or Dr. Dallin are there, one of the Samagina family, missing or dead agents, or even the king himself noticeable due to the shadow of black deeper than everyone else behind him. It will slowly grow in size and eventually golden highlights will appear in the darkness, and ultimately a ghostly face will appear behind the figure, causing a sand hit and giving them D4 corruption. Others from the night world could also be here, people like Ambrose, Mr. Castaigne, Ed Myler Wist, or maybe even Abigail Wright. None of them can be captured or killed and always vanish if a confrontation happens. If the agent unmasks the person they suspect to be someone they know, it's always a normal, unknown person. At the end of the confessions, the people attending leave one at a time. Someone from outside the circle touches them on the shoulder and they stand and leave. The agents will be touched last. Again, if they draw guns or become aggressive, the police will be called. As the agents leave upstairs, they find it empty, no cars in the lot, and the last agent feels a hand on their shoulder, but if they look around, they are alone in the room. We have a final op-int called Case of Total Party Kill, where it suggests that if a party needs to be replaced, they start an encounter group with someone describing the details of the campaign so far in great detail, and the new group begins as agents fleeing Delta Green and looking for Carcosa, with the same threats hanging over them. They start with 2d4 corruption and -2d6 San. The next section covers Ailia Citri. She is described as a 29-year-old Hispanic woman who is a hairdresser from Las Vegas, Nevada. Until recently, her life was fairly normal, engaged to DEA agent Michael Whitwer and planning to marry in 2016. Whitwer had to travel to the East Coast near the end of June and promptly disappeared. Her life has been nightmarish since. The DEA has started investigating his disappearance and his misdirection of funds, part of which being to fly to Boston, and now the local news are covering the story. Citri doesn't know that her fiancé works for Delta Green as Agent Vega and was called to Boston to investigate Dr. Barbas to see if an unnatural force had compromised him. Whitwer was subsequently captured and imprisoned in the night world. Odd letters and parcels have begun being delivered, as well as strange telephone calls at night. These are all by Barbas, and on the 2nd of August she received a brass statue of a cherub alongside a note containing a yellow sign, and this has turned her life further upside down. The power of Carcosa has warped her reality, and she is on the road to consumption. Her life has changed into a rather unusual one, and she's starting to get used to it. If questioned by the agent, she will tell them that she's trying to use her hobbies in order to cope with her fiancé's disappearance, though unless you've seen the yellow sign, this would make no sense. We have an op-in called Getting to Las Vegas. It states that the most obvious route is by air, and that most Delta Green agents can easily book a flight without worrying about security. It also states that even at 35,000 feet, they are not free from Carcosa's influence on the 6-hour 20-minute flight. The first is the traveller. At some point in the journey, a squat bald man will move past them to the bathroom near the back of the plane. Moments later, the same man is seen in distress back down the aisle. If he's followed, the bathroom is empty. Anyone who's seen Emmett Mosby will recognise him and take a sand hit. The second is the bug. While eating a packet of in-flight snacks, a small gold bug will be found in the bag, and every bag they open has one in. Should the agents keep them alive, they can become fully fledged gold bugs within 4 days. The third is the movie. One of the agents spots an in-flight movie another traveller is watching, and though no sound can be heard, it's clearly a story about a young woman artist who moves to New York City. Along with an old man, she visits a bookstore and buys a red book which she reads eagerly. There's a montage showing her exploring the bookstore at night and bringing many strange and mundane things to her apartment. The agent will recognise the events at the night floors, Abigail Wright and her father, which causes a sand hit. If Thomas Wright is with the group, he will lose San and the movie can't be located. There is a disinformation section called Researching Citri and the Sad Case of Emily Harris. Should the agents look into the name Citri, it can be found in Ars Goetia, giving the person who discovered it +1 corruption. Citri is described as a great prince of hell, reigning over 20 legions of demons. He causes men to love women and vice versa, and can make people bare themselves naked if required. He has the face of a leopard and a griffin's wings, but can change into a very beautiful woman if requested. Ophelia's hairdresser business has mostly good reviews on Yelp, and on social media there are lots of pictures of her and Michael Whitwer, news on her engagement, and a short post from July about Michael going missing. The last post she made is on the 13th of August of a sticker showing the yellow sign on a telephone pole. It has a single reply from an Emily Harris that says, "What is this? Oh, I don't like it." If Emily Harris is looked into, they can discover that she vanished on the 19th of August, with her case baffling the Las Vegas police who are still looking into it. She was a nail stylist who ran out of gas on a stretch of highway as she was returning home from an appointment in Mountain Springs. She called her boyfriend, Mika Dunbar, at 8:30 p.m. to ask for a ride. As he was getting ready to leave, she rang back out of breath and scared, saying someone was chasing her into the desert. Dunbar recorded as much of the call as he could, which ended with a scream and the line going dead. He called the police, who dispatched the unit to his home and to look for her. Around 40 minutes later, she rang again, sobbing. Nothing of use could be drawn from her, and the last thing heard was a loud male voice shouting, "Have you seen the yellow sign?" Harris, her car and her phone have all vanished. Also, strangely, the nail appointment she was attending never existed. She met an unknown male at a rest stop at around 6:40 p.m. who was described as balding, Caucasian in his mid-40s and wearing dated clothing and carrying a suitcase. There's no connection to Ophelia, and her boyfriend is still a suspect. The next piece of disinformation is the DEA investigation. Citri's house is currently being watched by the DEA. Should the agents fail a stealth roll when breaking in, 3 DEA agents will come looking, which could be potentially catastrophic. She's being looked into for the possible disappearance of Michael Whitwer after some financial irregularities were noticed, around $18,000 over 4 years. They theorise that Citri is conspiring with Whitwer, who is in contact with her and on the run. Her home number has been tapped and has only been picking up strange calls from Boston so far. There is a van watching the house from the street which takes photographs of visitors. Anyone going up to the house who wants to look for surveillance needs to pass an alertness roll, with a good roll meaning they see an air conditioner king van, which rocks as if someone is in the back of it, despite nobody being in the front seat and there being no lights on. The investigation is being led by DEA Special Agent Reuben Hardrick. He is sure that Whitwer's vanishing act is part of a criminal enterprise that could be a rabbit hole to look into. As such, he spends most of his time in the van surveilling the house. Should FBI agents turn up to question Citri, then he will be attentive. Any phone calls to the house are being recorded, and any hint of Delta Green will mean he will try his hardest to uncover it. He's relentless and fearless in accusing law enforcement of criminal enterprise. Essentially, him finding out about Delta Green could be disastrous. Moving on to Citri's residence, we discover that she lives at 1704 Williamsport Street, Henderson, Nevada. It's a ranch-style house located in a Las Vegas suburb, and not many people locally have interacted with her. Whitwer's case being discussed on the news has made her home a little bit more conspicuous, though this is beginning to die down. It's always locked, and she is almost always there, other than when she goes to buy food and drink. If she's surveilled by the agent, she can be seen bringing in mining equipment and construction tools. If anyone knocks on the house or rings the bell, she won't come to the door and will claim that she's being harassed by the press and will try her best to not engage in conversation. Listening nearby picks up the noise of hammers, drills, pickaxes and rocks being moved. While it's noisy, breaking in is easy. The living room looks fairly well maintained, other than one of the couches having been moved so that there is a straight path to the kitchen. The kitchen is clean despite there being stacked piles of dishes in the sink. If the fridge is opened, items will pour out of it. There's around 2 months of food in here, and yet she still heads out to buy more. Moving on from the kitchen, the bathroom and the bedrooms are a stark contrast. All of the doors have a plastic strap on them, which is used to assist people with disabilities in opening them. Here we come across our first clue, the Cherub box. In the living room, there's a large box that has a label that shows it was shipped from Jamestown, Massachusetts, and delivered on the 2nd of August. The return address has been written over with the word wild, though someone with the appropriate skills can determine it was sent by Barbas. The box contains around 36 pieces of cracked bronze that look like they were part of a sculpture. Anyone who makes an art roll can work out that it looks like a sculpture of a child, and further investigation with the relevant skills can figure out that it seems to have been shattered from the inside out. The agents may also recognise the mould from Barbas's house. There's a smaller bedroom filled with all of Michael Whitworth's possessions, as if the house has been cleared of them, and Ophelia's laptop lies in a corner covered in a layer of dust. Similarly, the bathroom is covered in dust. We then move to a threat matrix, the Cherub. This strange mechanical guardian could be anywhere in Ophelia's home. It was created by Barbas to guard Ophelia's home while she goes through her changes. It's autonomous and similar to the lion and the scribe. It spins up with mechanical noise, though nowhere near as loud. It will activate whenever it notices anyone other than Ophelia and attacks by charging and stabbing at the legs of the intruder with a butcher's knife. It uses the house as a hunting ground and hides and becomes silent when still, ambushing when it has the best opportunity. It's small, hard to fight, and uses the straps on the doors to move around the house. The master bedroom has been destroyed, with piles of rubble and a strange pearlescent black rock. The walls are soot-stained, and there are a number of burned-out digging drills and chippers scattered about. There's a string of lights and an extension cord that run into a tunnel in the master bathroom, where the bathtub has been removed. It descends around 10 metres into the earth and is hard to get into. Anybody entering the hole gains +1 corruption, and those with training in geology can note that the tunnel passes through unidentified igneous rock, which causes a small sand hit. At the end of the tunnel, Ophelia has been working on shoring up a cave entrance, as there's a crack in the black rock, which has flickering lights beyond. Voices can be heard, and looking through the crack they can see small recesses carved into the rock, with each holding an ornate bottle. 2 people are speaking nearby saying, "My bottle, do you see it?" replied by "No, no." These are residents of Hotel Broadlebin looking for their soul bottles in the Whisper Labyrinth. It could even be the agents themselves. Should the agents try to engage with them, they attack the crack with what looks like a pickaxe, causing the tunnel to collapse, and agents will need to escape or be crushed. The space beyond the crack can never be found by any method, as seeing it causes a minor sand hit. The next section covers Dorchester by night. It stresses that upon entering after dark, they cease to exist in the normal world. They are transformed. It's not meant to be a dramatic transformation. They're supposed to realise that they are actually not Delta Green agents, but delusional patients at the facility. They will come to realise that they are wearing hospital pyjamas and won't have any of their normal possessions, and strangely, it's always night time. Those who meet this revelation with violence will be met with violence, drugs, or whatever method is needed to keep them from leaving. They will always wake up back here as patients no matter what they do to try and escape. Luckily for them, there is a way to escape to the real world. More on that later. The patients here won't notice the strangeness and won't even really listen to the new patient, because why would they be patients if they were not as delusional as everyone else? We then have an op-in section called The Reality of the Night World. It stresses that once the sun is set, Dorchester House is filled with fear, everywhere, down to the last floor tile, making the point that if the McAllister building was a cracked portal to Carcosa, Dorchester House is a wide open door. There are patients here with their minds being controlled by delusion, and this realisation that they are trapped here has a sand hit. The building becomes filled with secret things at night. Hidden doors, rooms, staircases, elevators and passageways. They will hear strange alarms, find metal bars over the entrances and windows sealed to prevent escape. Whole new floors will appear, black and white photographs of unknown people and collections of masks. The changes are subtle, and the handlers should talk about them as if they have always been here. It's always night time inside there, with clocks sticking at just before midnight. Nobody seems to notice this, and the agents lose sight each time they point it out. Doors that open to exterior areas instead lead to indoor places. At night, Dr. Dallin enters a door in his office that descends deep into the night world, and Dr. Maximo Friend takes over, and he is obsessed with learning about the King in Yellow more than curing patients. And Ed Myler-Wist is replaced by the misshapen Mr. Wilde. Patients that were found during the day can also be found here, changed and warped by Carcosa, wandering the building. Previously locked doors can be found open, and the staff are only concerned with their own crazed corner of the night world. Any agent who goes temporarily insane here doesn't suffer the effects until they leave, and it is the same with any disorders gained here, and those that hit zero sand feel compelled to stay and explore. The staff are different at night, with Dr. Friend taking over as attending physician, and Edward Dubrovnik takes over from Esther Samagina as head nurse. Dr. Friend is almost a polar opposite of Dr. Dallin, being small, loud and outspoken. The only person who talks of him during the day is Timothy Bale, though few in the night world can even remember Dr. Dallin. Dr. Friend can be found talking to patients, taking notes and showing up when trouble breaks out. He considers any talk of Delta Green to be part of the agent's mental stability and will not shift from this perspective. He is secretly obsessed with the King in Yellow and is a lost soul who is trapped here forever. He will carefully interrogate his patients to find out what they know of the book, with him making anyone who talks freely about it his current project, especially if they've read it or have the highest corruption rating. Dr. Dallin is particularly difficult to find after dark, as he is evasive. Whoever is pursuing him needs a corruption of at least 3 and must fail 3 SAN rolls, with each costing 0 or D4 SAN. They'll perceive the holes and doors sliding away, and then they'll snap into focus as they get nearer to Dr. Dallin. If any of these rolls are passed, they end up in the library. More on that in a bit. Should they manage to find him, Dr. Dallin will try to keep ahead of them, talking over his shoulder, and will become violent if physically stopped. And if questioned about the strangeness that Dorchester House has become, he will simply say that the patients have always been here. Should the players have run into him in the night floors, they could potentially see themselves in 1995 and take a small SAN loss, but they can never actually meet themselves. As mentioned, Esther Samagina, who has her own agenda at night, is replaced by Edward, Mr. Ed Dubrovnik. A huge, intimidating man who hardly speaks, is hard to read, and would use violence after 2 warnings without compunction. Though no matter how much he hurts patients, they always manage to recover. Next we go into the patients of Dorchester House by night. Many that exist here of a day are there at night, whereas others exist only in the night world. The first of these detailed is Mr. Wilde, the repairer of reputations, a disfigured madman who comes across as being quiet, certain and communicative, as well as making people feel uneasy. His name is an anagram of Ed Myler-Wist, with those noticing it receiving a +1 corruption for their troubles. His role here is to spread or squash rumours about patients and increase or decrease their reputation in certain circles, even if they are delusional. He is in service of the true king and does it for him, but also requires some kind of payment, and his powers are real and tangible, though he will sometimes undertake favours on credit to prove that what he can do is real. He can be found in the company of his disgusting cat, and his secret desire is to meet the king himself and find answers to the questions that haunt him. He doesn't know much about Ed Myler-Wist, though while Hyde sleeps, things he has written down in his book tend to somehow happen. He can be considered a stabilising element and will make it clear that escape is possible, being willing to introduce the agents to Bale, who can assist them, though it depends if the players are willing to pay whatever price he asks. He could ask them to retrieve his bottle from the Whisper Labyrinth, or to repair someone's reputation, or even get him an invite to the masquerade at the palace. Essentially, it's the handler's call as to what nasty thing they can concoct. He will also speak plainly about the King in Yellow and the Night World, understanding that the King is a divine ruler who has transcended reality, calling to certain families at certain times in certain places to draw them to his rule in the kingdom of Carcosa, being trapped like a fly in a web. He will say that the King's pronouncements are gathered in some tomes, and that he has touched them in some strange way, and that all who are touched must find their way to the King to receive judgment or spend an eternity of banishment in the Night World. The next important patient detailed is King Bale. Timothy Bale can be found at night, squatting on a stack of waterlogged books in a room with an old telephone in it, looking through his notebook and taking constant calls. He will happily speak to anyone who wants to chat, and has strange one-sided conversations saying things like 20 children, leave them in the water, or no, it's in the mansion, but Lundin needs to build it first, send Asa. He will speak to Mr. Wilde often to tell him to enact his different schemes, with their goal being difficult to ascertain to those listening. The cord from the phone goes into a hole in the floor which leads to a hotel room which is identical to the room on the other side of the dream window. More on that later. They seem to be connected to each other directly and to nothing else, though somehow they can still dial out of the building, which causes a small sand hit. Bale's stats are essentially the same night or day. We have a disinformation section called The Secrets of King Bale. Due to the machinations of the King in Yellow, Bale is the actual creator of demonology throughout history. Certain individuals in his notebooks have been marked with symbols that are associated with demons. People like Barbas, who is Marbas, Dr. Dallin, who is Foras, etc. This is detailed in the preliminary invocation to Primaton later on in the book. Some being described a long time before Bale was even born, reaching right back to the Chateau de Portes and the Hygromantia Grimoire, which was written in 1403. From Bale's point of view, the world has shrunk and revealed its lies to him, making him understand that time, place and identity are false. There is only Carcosa. He understands that he can escape the building, but only after a gong is sounded by Urizen, the Starry King. Many of the residents that exist in Dorchester House are present but changed at night. Dorothy Yale can speak with the dead through any radio, TV or telephone, even producing the voice of the people the agents knew in life, though the voice will be distracted and emotionless, providing correct answers to personal questions for D6 plus 1 minutes before vanishing forever. This gives a small sand hit and grants +1 corruption. John Palliot will speak at great length about the King in Yellow and the royal court of Yatel. As a frequent visitor, he can describe Carcosa, though can't lead anybody there unless their corruption is 7 or more. Should an agent go with him there, then the handler decides their fate. Cloris Gareth Vance creates complex paper structures with intricate patterns that vanish at intervals. The paper dragons she makes contain an empty thermos-sized glass container, and she will explain that her name is on an important list in a book called The Imperial Dynasty of America. Should the agent be with Rudolph Valater at any time, they will see the puppets he speaks of and can follow them into the night world. He knows a lot about the building at night, including the main people and an odd door in Dr. Dallin's office. Asa Darabondi is here at night, looking ill and having expensive silk pyjamas and slippers. He looks frantic and lost and will confess that he may have killed someone, saying that the king told him to drown a boy, a girl, a boy, etc., but will suddenly laugh it off as a dream. If inspected, his hands look raw and peeling from exposure to water, causing a minor sand hit. There are also residents of Dorchester House that only exist at night. There's Deborah Carver, a woman in her 30s who is able to find and refine Melonia and can show the agents how to use it and also the power of the gold bug. She knows a lot about the place and was once an associate of J.C. Lynch at Hotel Broadalbin. We have Gary Topchick, the man who was framed in 1952 by Delta Green under Operation Luna. He doesn't know much about where he is and will mislead and obstruct the agents should they reveal they're with Delta Green, killing any agents he can get alone. We have Leyland A. Fuller, the agent who connected Emmett Mosby, the Red Book and the Dizzian Bureau files in 1952. He was committed to psychiatric care shortly after and died in 1981. He can tell the agents that there's only one way to escape here. You have to go to and through Carcosa. He's an expert on the play and can write the yellow sign from memory, and is happy to do it for anyone except Dr. Friend, who he loathes. There is Sunshine, a mute patient over 80 years old who cannot understand speech or writing. They can be a duplicate of any agent in the group who was trapped here, who somehow escaped from Carcosa in 1955 and was subsequently incarcerated. Nobody knows them as anyone other than Sunshine due to their ready smile and happy demeanour, though they will get excited and try hard to communicate with them. They will only speak or write gibberish, though they will seem strangely familiar. It also indicates that any resident of the McAllister building can be found here except Abigail Wright. The next thing detailed is Dr. Dallin's office by night. It becomes strange. A red steel pressurised door appears next to the window that leads to doors and rooms that descend deep underneath the hospital and into the night world, which causes a sand hit if the agents realise this. Dallin enters at dusk every night and Friend emerges and neither ever meet. The room has an odd effect whereby if somebody undertakes dramatic movements, jumping, spinning, skipping and the like, then the room expands its walls to grow more walls up until 8, until collapsing back to 4. The bookshelves are filled with books from Carcosa, with their spines making strange patterns and colours which conform into the yellow sign if viewed for long enough. If a book is removed, another book can be found behind it, and if the agents remove that, there is one behind that. Digging into this shelf eventually leads to the library. More on that soon. The view that once showed the Neponset River now shows just night time. Distant lights can be determined to be dim and flickering, as if not using electricity. The shadow of a Kremlin-esque building can be seen, and the window of the office is more akin to aquarium glass. It cannot be broken, but can crack. Dallon's rock collection looks the same by night. However, if any are picked up, they are found to be attached to the case and are warm and pulsing as if the case itself is alive, which causes a sand hit. If the case is struck, it whines like a dog and bleeds, causing a further hit. The next location detailed is the library. It's accessible via the previously mentioned methods, and is an endless sprawl of mahogany bookshelves, raised walkways and halls with no windows, and a maze of doors leading to hidden chambers that seemingly go on forever. The shelves are filled with books in strange languages, as well as English, and talk about countries, animals, and people that don't exist. Almost any book connected to the King in Yellow can be found here, and a copy of Mental Illness in the Workplace and Beyond can even be found here. Parts of it are wrecked and water damaged, and odd metal slot tracks can be found in the ceiling all over. Figures whose feet don't touch the ground can be seen in the distance, but it's otherwise vacant. Parts of it look lived in. Remnants of old food cans and empty bottles can be found alongside old campfires made from books, with rat-like bones seen nearby. The light here seems to vary as if mimicking night and day, though there are no obvious sources. Skittering sounds echo throughout, and sometimes a low growl and slow padding of a large cat can be heard. Anybody who doesn't light a fire when it gets dark encounters the paper tiger, a horrific monstrosity that has a body made of sodden paper and a maw of rusty nails, glass and razor blades. We then move on to the cotton candy room. It's called this due to the awful pink colour scheme, and is a therapy room that does not exist in the daytime. This is where Dr. Friend gathers patients for a group and can include any resident here. The doors are locked when in session, and he will introduce himself and then expect the patients to do the same, and then explain that is to heal hearts and minds, talking about what is expected of them, and then he begins questioning them, beginning with mundane questions and then turning bizarre. It gives some examples here such as, do your past failures still worry you? Then moving on to the likes of, have you seen the yellow sign? Or, have you found your bottle? When the agents themselves are questioned, the room morphs into a huge European royal court from the 19th century, replete with plush red carpets and a throne. This causes a minor sand hit. There are banners on the wall that are emblazoned with the yellow sign. The agents are, of course, in their hospital garb, but Friend is dressed like a noble and sits on a golden chair next to the throne, changing demeanour to a stuffy nobleman. He speaks a foreign language, which is actually Tartessian, but the agents can understand him. When he finishes questioning them, the room returns to normal. Well, as normal as the night world can get. Once group therapy is done, they are left on their own and they can try to escape, explore or interact with the residents here. Mr. Wilde may even approach them, plying them for information. If they can pay his price, he will tell them that Bale knows a way out of the night world. Should they decide not to speak with Bale, he will pull the one with the highest corruption aside, saying that he recognises them. He tells them he knows a way out and can speak plainly on the night world, explaining that the play sits at the centre of everything. It is an Ouroboros that vomits out and devours the world. The only way out is to go through it to Carcosa, and he will take them there if they wish. This is followed by a section called In the Field, Motivations and Manifestations. Essentially, their only hope of getting out of Dorchester House is by following Bale, and at this stage they are probably understandably paranoid and resistant to the idea. It provides some examples of encounters to get them on the track of going with him. One of them is that the agent with the highest corruption score is grabbed by orderlies and dragged off to a room where they are strapped to a gurney and then taken to an odd room painted green with a star on the door. Dr. Friend will then appear and use an enormous old hypodermic syringe that is set to withdraw fluid, and he will insert it into the agent's left eye socket, extracting a red oily liquid. This causes a sand hit but takes +1 corruption off their score. He can be heard talking to Mr. Ed saying the patsu is extremely potent. The agent is then released but will notice other patients who have bruises and marks under their left eyes, causing a minor sand hit. If Dr. Friend is confronted, he will deny it ever happened. The second is called pneumatics. An agent will see an orderly pushing a cart filled with strange canisters, filled with a thick red liquid which appears to be breathing, sliding up and down. The orderly will then remove an old painting from a wall of an empty red curtained stage, and then will slip each cylinder into a hole sized for the canister, which will then be sucked away to somewhere. The last one detailed is the silver robes. They will see a fat guy wearing silver robes with a plain white mask. Any agent who visited Encounter Group at this stage or has seen photos of the dead Henry Lundeen may recognise the clothing. If he is followed without being noticed, meaning 3 stealth rolls, they will arrive in the theatre area where they will be startled by Bale, who will tell them, "Come on, our time is short." This will lead to the next section, the stage, the dragon and the clown. It also suggests that other manifestations from the night floors could be used here too. The next part is the aforementioned The Stage, the Dragon and the Clown. Those who take Bale up on his offer and follow him there will be led through a veritable maze of rooms underneath Dorchester House that will slowly change decor from that of a hospital to a theatre, replete with the likes of thick burgundy carpets and recessed lighting. Bale traverses and navigates this with ease, though manifestations could happen along the way depending on how the handler feels. Those with a corruption of 4+ can see shooting light coming from Bale and an aura of power surrounds him. Eventually a gong will sound, there will be applause, and Bale will usher them into a darkened theatre with an empty, badly lit wooden stage. He will move them to seats in the front row, and the fellow audience members' faces, if looked at, are blurred. If an agent examines them closer, they gain +1 corruption, as they see that they are looking at the faces of dead people they know, which causes a sun hit. If they are disturbed, they vanish, causing a further sun hit, and what is left is a thick puddle of red oil, recognisable as the patsu that was extracted by Dr. Friend. The liquid seems to be fed from a small hole in the base of the seat. Eventually, a child-sized clown will emerge from stage right, and an invisible orchestra will begin playing a strange looping dirge. The clown mask is particularly disturbing, having exposed geometric teeth and slits as eyes. It will begin dancing and lift a paper dragon from the stage. Those who pass an awareness roll will notice that as the clown dances, a thin reddish cloud creeps from the audience to the stage. Meanwhile, the cloud dances with the dragon, making strange patterns in the air and cutting through the mist, which vanishes as it does so. Bale will tell the agents to watch the dance and wait until the end, saying that the exit is nearby, and he will tell them when to go. The clown has something they need, but they need to wait for the dance to stop. The music will rise to a crescendo and then suddenly halt. The lights go out and the clown vanishes from the stage. Looking around, the agents will notice that the audience has vanished too. Bale then tells them to follow him as he creeps onto the stage. The clown is passed out on the floor and tiny like an infant compared to the paper dragon, which looks colossal in comparison. Bale will drag the paper dragon onto the stage, keeping an eye on the clown, and then pull out a glass flask of the red oil, the patsu. He opens it, telling the agents that the patsu is the way out, and then takes a swig and hands it to the agent with the highest corruption. Bale then vanishes, causing a sand hit. The liquid vanishes from top to bottom, causing a sand hit, and then refills on its own like it's breathing over and over. We have this information section where it talks about how Bale explains the dance. If the agents ask the identity of the clown and the meaning of the dance, they gain +1 corruption, and what they learn is based on their corruption score. If they have 3 or less, he will simply say, the dance is about the play, the clown is the king. A corruption of 4 to 5 will be told, the clown is the king and the dragon is the yellow sign. The dance is about the creation of the play. See there, these steps are about the author of the play, and there, something about bottle. It's difficult to explain. A corruption of 6 to 9 will be told, the dance reflects the creation of the play. A person finds the bottle of the author in a cave and brings it to the author at a masquerade. The secret in the bottle tells the author how to write the play in which the author already exists. The clown is the king, the dragon is the yellow sign, and the stage is the world. In the dance, the king carves the world from our lives. The dance creates our world, and the yellow sign eats the lives in the world to feed the king. A corruption of 10 is all the above, plus at the crescendo, the clown removes its mask in such a way that the agent is the only one who can see behind it. Inside the mask is everything. This causes a potential huge sand hit. If Bale is asked about the red mist, he will simply say, that's why we're here. So, back to the stage. As Bale disappears, the clown stands up and cocks its head, seemingly looking at the agent holding the glass flask. It will then start creepily shuffling toward them in a strange dance, and the agents will feel deathly afraid. Its perspective seems to change and it starts growing taller, growing further as it pursues the agent, eventually reaching over 12 metres tall. If the agents run away, then they will find a solid black wall of stone where the theatre was, and the ceiling will start lowering to reveal another darkened room. From that room, another darkened chamber will open, and from that, another that will unfold like a puzzle box with sliding walls and ropes and pulleys, all with a single light bulb to show the way. A number of dodge and athletic tests are required by the agents holding the flask as the clown pursues them, smashing down the walls and turning obstacles with ease. If the clown gets 2 cumulative wins, it touches the target. If touched, it has a lethality of 15%, with those dying exploding in a spray of patsu which causes a sand hit to witnesses. Those who survive its touch are covered with wounds that weep patsu. They heal but cause scars that never disappear, giving them a +2 corruption permanently. Incidentally, the clown cannot be harmed in any way. If the agent drinks the patsu, they take a small sand hit and vanish like Bale on the next turn, giving the clown another chance to touch them. A passed sand roll makes the agent understand that they won't vanish instantly, and they can stall it if they wish. The patsu can be handed off to another agent with a dex check. Failure causes it to be dropped, which gives the clown a free success against them. If the clown grabs the patsu, it greedily pours it over its face, trying to drink it. Agents can drink the patsu that the clown spills, requiring a luck roll. The patsu refills over and over again during the pursuit. As they're pursued, the agents are filled with terror and a sense of revelation, seeing things that they believe they are not meant to see. These are listed on this table here and based on the height of the clown, ranging from seeing Dr. Barbas carrying red books to a revelation on the timeline of the King in Yellow. Those agents who consume the patsu will eventually pop into existence in the real world, awakening in an empty, dusty house that has locked doors and windows. All agents regain 2d6 sand and lose 4 corruption points to a minimum of 1. On the floor they see a symbol etched that can be revealed to be the mark of Malthus. They gain +1 corruption if they recognise it. Searching the house will find a stack of cards for a realtor called Patricia McSwain. The house sits in the Codman Square neighbourhood of Boston, a mere 5-minute walk from Dorchester House. As per the night floors, temporary insanity only kicks in upon returning to the real world, though a loss of 5+ only means a single episode of temporary insanity. After they've recovered, the person with the highest corruption can hear the gentle chimes of a musical box, and the clockwork child wobbles into the room they are in, holding a piece of paper in one spinning hand. They take a small sand hit for this. As per the night floors, once it is not being observed, the clockwork child vanishes, leaving the note behind, costing another small sand hit. The note is a thick piece of cream stationery that reads Hotel Broadlebin on the front. On the back, written in red ink and fancy script, is the following: Find J.C. Lynch at Hotel Broadlebin. Go now, find the hotel, the labyrinth, the author, his bottle, the city, the lake, its shadow, the battle, then the party, the dance, the girl in blue, the one singing nothing is true, except out is through. Love and kisses, Abby. The agents come to understand that they never really left the McAllister building behind, as time is meaningless to the King in Yellow. He waits, and those that come too close to him are consumed. Others are trapped in dead, repeating orbits or cast into the void. He has infected a number of places in Boston, and they are connecting our world to the night world and closer to Carcosa. Single strands connected to the King can be cut in various ways, but this will not stop the relentless power and influence of the King. It seems apparent that Abigail Wright, having disappeared 20 years ago, is still alive, somewhere, and that their orbit around the King is decaying and will cause them to burn up unless they can swing close enough to speed by and break the connection. It then covers the transition into Chapter 3, like a map made of skin. The agents could have survived their first immersion into the night world. They are on the run from Delta Green and the forces of the King in Yellow and need to find the mysterious Hotel Broadlebin. They're beginning to see that reality is a convenient illusion and that the world is a lie. It's only the play that is real. This is followed by some discussion on bringing new agents into the game, pointing out that members of the Mercy team like Michael Whitwer could make a good replacement, as they may just turn up without explanation when the agents leave Dorchester House. Following this, we have the stats for Timothy Bale, Dr. Barbas, the Cherub, Dr. Fallon, the gunmen from the Trevellino Mall, Edward Dubrovnik, or Mr. Ed, Dr. Friend, DEA Special Agent Reuben Hardrick, the Lion, the Paper Tiger in its 3 manifestations, that being night, dusk and day, Esther Samagina, Ailia Citri, Mr. Wilde, Ed Milewist, and finally, DEA Special Agent Michael Whitwer. The last section of this chapter is Exeunt, the Missing Room. We're greeted with yet another quote from the King in Yellow, and then we move on to the section itself. This involves the Boxer Hotel, a landmark in Boston's West End. It was built in 1904 and renovated in 2015. It is also the place where the Delta Green Mercy team stayed in June 2015 before they were captured and placed in Dorchester House. They stayed in room 616 while following Dr. Barbas, and by gathering clues and evidence have infected the room with the power of the King in Yellow. The room has vanished from the normal world, well, nearly. The room itself has 2 double beds and a fold-out couch, as well as a flat-screen TV, charging station, aircon and curtains. The room actually doesn't have a window, which makes it feel claustrophobic. The bathroom is shiny and white with towels marked with a conspicuous B on them and looks and smells clean and tidy. We have an up-in section called Locating the Missing Room. Clues to find in it can be found in Dr. Barbus's second bedroom among the crumpled cheat sheets, and also tracking Agent Vega's phone leads to here. Those agents with a corruption of 2+, who look for room 616 at the Boxer Hotel, can make a sand check after searching. If they fail, they come to a hallway that they could have sworn was empty moments before, and they lose 1 sand and find room 616. Those agents smart enough to realise that dialling *616 in the hotel on the sat phone Dr. Barbus gave them causes them to hear a phone ringing nearby from an empty room. They can then find the previously empty hallway, gain +1 corruption, lose 1 sand, and find room 616. Due to the power of Carcosa, the room has ceased to exist and the staff have not noticed. It's never been there for them. The rooms surrounding where it should be are correctly numbered, and only those who can see 616 see it as present. Also, it has a keyhole instead of a card lock. The key is in Dr. Barbus's pocket, though it can be forced open or picked. Should the agents search the room, they can find a number of clues. The first is a Gideon Bible that is in the waste bin. If a search roll is passed, they will notice that 3/4 of the way through the book, it develops it into an intelligence report, which causes a minor sand hit. It contains complete copies of Le Roi en Jaune in French and The King in Yellow in English. The second clue is the crumpled napkin. It can be found in the bin and smells of wine. Unfolding it reveals the initials GBR, the Gateway Bridges restaurant, as well as the napkin from the diagrams in the McAllister building. This causes a minor sand hit. The third clue is the Deuxième Bureau file. A copy of the file can be found in a small leather valise in a drawer of the dresser the TV is on. It has a number of photographs, news articles in English, French and German, and reports of Le Roi en Jaune. There's also 2 complete copies of the play in French and English, and it is notable that many of the pages are stamped Delta Green, also being dated 1951. If the notes are pored over, some recent handwriting can be picked out. One set is Whitworth's, though the agents won't know this, that appears on a photograph of Emmett Mosby. Mosby's handwriting appears on an old black and white photo that has a note on it that says Marbus and dated 1895. The photo is of 2 actors in a pantomime, one a tall African-American man and the other a pale white woman. The man is clearly Barbus, and to those with the right skills it can be determined that the photo is genuinely as old as it appears. Whitwer also writes on a section of the play concerning dreams, West window during sleep, and on the last page in the file is scrawled, words copy themselves, call O. Making books in the house, Dallin 9 on July 8, Mace stung on zip tie, Purin D H, then raid Medford H and burn. The fourth clue is the keycard. It can be found in the drawer of one of the side tables and has Imagico, the company that makes them, embossed on the side. Examining the card will reveal that a corner of the card has red paint scraped onto the side of it, and it opens all doors at Dorchester House. The fifth clue is the papier-mâché mask and robe. In the dresser drawer is a mask and a silver robe from Encounter Group. The mask sometimes seems to be smiling and other times confused and is poorly made. The sixth is the telephone. The phone appears normal, if a bit old-fashioned. The front desk and anything outside cannot be called. However, if *69 is dialed, the sat phone received from Barbus will ring, though calling it back doesn't cause the phone in the room to ring. Those who pass an alertness check can faintly hear a phone in another room ring, and after 2 it stops and is picked up as normal. If they press their ears against the west wall, they can faintly hear someone talking, though if they reach the room, nobody is there. The final clue is the cleaned bloodstains. If the room is forensically tested, it looks like there is evidence that someone was shot in the main area, maybe while lying on the floor, then dragged to the west wall above the air conditioner. This will be revealed with usual blood detection methods. There are also spray patterns on the ceiling and rug and on the edges of the curtains. We have a disinformation section called the Infectious file. Here it talks about the file from Deuxième Bureau being strange and dangerous. It is actually a vector for infection. It has the ability to change numbers and words on anything it touches, the example being the desk lamp once had USB and on and off on it, as well as property of Halton Limited. They now say the artist and of the original play. It's due to this that the Gideon Bible is the way that it is, and why Michael Whitwer's wristwatch has the strange dial. Additionally, it always matches the font and layout of the text that it is replacing, and never happens when people see it. It's easily repeatable once understood, and causes sand loss when it's first discovered. The next section covers what happens if the agents make the incredibly foolish decision to stay in the room. They become corrupted over time by various manifestations based on their corruption score. At a corruption of 2, an agent will hear someone getting ready in the bathroom, and if they look through the door crack, they will see an out-of-focus woman in the mirror covered in blood, which causes a sand hit. Going in, they will of course find it empty. At Corruption 3, they will be startled by the noise of a box being dropped on the floor out of sight. When they are not looking, a box will appear, seemingly from nowhere, that is filled with junk. Though if searched, Polaroid photographs of the shrine in Abigail's apartment will be found in the bottom, causing a small sand hit. They will then hear the bathroom door closing and catch a glimpse of a man in a two-tone suit carrying the box into the bathroom. His features are blurred and the box is gone, plus there's nobody in the bathroom, which causes a further sand hit. At Corruption 4, they will turn to find a woman with her head blown apart by a shotgun blast near the curtains. There is blood and gore everywhere and they can smell gunpowder. They realise they are holding a smoking pistol, which causes a big sand hit, and when anyone else comes in, everything is back to normal. At Corruption 5, an agent will find a hand-painted stage prop of a door in a room that was previously not there, causing a minor sand hit. If they step through it and look back, the door has vanished, causing another sand hit. If anyone listens at the door, a man can be heard reading a script, which causes another sand hit. It can be recognised as the King in Yellow by anyone who is ready. Eventually, a loud voice will be heard shouting, 10 minutes to Craig, and then there is silence. At Corruption 6, a dim shadow is seen on the wall opposite the bathroom that is humanoid but strangely elongated and gangly, making a hollow clacking sound when it moves. Anyone who checks the bathroom finds a life-size marionette of themselves dangling from strings in the ceiling. It will suddenly rush them, mirroring their movements and then vanish. This causes a sand hit. When they leave the bathroom, a lavender-coloured hardback book will slide across the floor toward them. This is a copy of Libro Secretorum Manifesta and causes a minor sand hit. At Corruption 7 and above, the agent will jump at the sound of an audience applauding seemingly beyond the closet door. It's checked that there's a small grate that it seems to be coming from. If the grate is removed, then a narrow metal shaft leads into the darkness, and a child can be heard from beyond either laughing or crying. Those small enough can fit in the grate, and will see a white face with shadowed eyes barely visible in the dark that whispers, "Come and see," which causes a small sand hit. If they pass an alertness roll, they will become aware of something coiled or tentacled beyond the face, causing another sand hit. Should they go toward the face, they find another grate at the end, and beyond there is a theatre where they can see a child-sized clown dancing with a paper dragon, essentially the end section of Dorchester House. Shadowed figures will move toward the stage, but this is all that can be seen as shadowed tentacle limbs connected to a porcelain face start grappling with the agent, causing a sand hit. 2 strength rolls are needed, with each failure causing d6 damage. If both fail, the agent is killed and lost forever. The noise of a gong will fill the room, causing a small sand hit, and far off, flutes and drums can be heard in another room. If they leave the room, the noises fade. Should they stay, things get far worse. On the first round, the curtains start fluttering, and on the second, a thick, water-like liquid comes from behind the curtains, causing a small sand hit, and on the third, a bandaged hand pushes through the curtains, and on the fourth, the King in Yellow himself steps through. Should they be insane enough to stay for the 5th round, he removes his mask, causing D10 or D100 sand loss. Anyone who hits 0 sand vanishes. Their body is never found, and no evidence of the flood remains. Those agents asleep in the room can open the dream window. This is mentioned in Whitwer's notes. It appears on the west wall, and only when someone is asleep and dreaming, as well as others being there to see it. Anyone who is awake in this fashion will see trickles of water running under the curtains that cover the wall. If they're pulled aside, a silver puddle is forming in the wall, spreading outward. This causes a sand hit. After around 10 minutes, it forms into a rectangle through which a murky hotel room can be seen, as if looking through water that is similar to the one they are in, and contains a banded leather suitcase that is open on one of the beds, along with an old-style Bell telephone. The back of the door has the word Broadal bin on it, for those that can read it through the ripples, and there is a travel typewriter in the room with a manuscript stacked nearby. Entering the room gives +1 corruption, and they will need to hold their breath and swim to the various things as demonstrated in this table here. Anyone foolish enough to dial a sat phone while the window is open sees a tall, thin person quickly enter the room when it rings, wearing a tattered greenish gold robe with a hood. It hides its face. It moves like normal, not like in water. If an agent is present when the phone rings, this is very, very bad. When the figure enters, the water fogs over, blocking out vision. The agent in the dream takes a luck roll, and if they fail, they take D100 sand loss, and a pass is D10. Those who fail fall out of the window mumbling, "No mask, no mask," and will flee unless stopped. If 0 sand is hit, then they fall out of the window completely convinced that everyone has been replaced by masked strangers that are there to kill them. They must try and kill them and remove their mask. Once this is resolved, the handler then takes over the character. If the person sleeping wakes up, then the window closes. If anyone is in the water, they're lost. The dreamer may have dreams of them occasionally, and the handler may have them wash up on the shore of Lake Halley later in the campaign. Some good information can be gained from venturing into the room. The first is the papers and the typewriter. This is a transcript of everything that has been said on the SAF phone, interspersed with portions of the play from the night floors. This causes a sand hit. The typewriter seems new, and if they decide to keep it, then it becomes a channel through which the king and his servants' thoughts can be realised. The second is the suitcase. It has the initials JCL on the lock plate and J Lint written on the inside. It contains 1930s clothes. The third is the telephone. If it's pulled from the wall, then the SAF phone becomes unusable. The last clue is the door on the plaque. The door appears to be locked from the outside and can't be opened. The back of the door has a security message with the top reading as Hotel Broadalbin. The security writing is a long joined up sentence that when split reads, "Along the shore the cloud waves break, the twin suns sink behind the lake, and shadows lengthen in Carcosa, strange is the night." Okay, that concludes a volume of Secret Faces. Part 6 in this series will be Chapter 3, Like a Map Made of Skin.